Good morning, everybody. It's Friday.
Good morning.
Good
Friday.
morning.
Oh, my goodness. Guys, I've been waiting for this for about 2 weeks now.
Yeah,
Wow.
we're really excited.
We are so excited. Oh, my goodness. Michelle, tell us what's going on today.
Okay, so today we have Tracy Herbert, and I am so excited to have her here. She's a Fort Worth lady, and she's so inspirational. So we've got some gold to bring to you guys today. I'm going to read her bio. Tracy is the best-selling author of Diabetes Tragedy to Triumph, Ride for Hope, and Longevity Codes. She is a podcast host of Your Diabetes Breakthrough and is a leading authority in health and diabetes, having lived with type 1 diabetes for over 40 years successfully without any complications. Wow. She is a sought-after speaker, including Harvard, is a frequent guest on TV shows across the country, and has appeared on the Dr. Oz show.
What?
Tracy rode her bicycle, listen up, guys, 3,527 miles from San Francisco to New York City to spread awareness about diabetes and provide hope. Involved in health and wellness for over 20 years, so she's a woman after my own heart. She brings unique, fun, and energetic strategies to help her clients and audiences learn to live healthy lives. She uses her passion and gift of encouragement, and she is an amazing encourager, to offer simple tools to those struggling to take control of their life the healthy way. Tracy has a BS in psychology, is a trained wellness coach, certified personal trainer, and helps people from all walks of life. The focus of her speaking, podcast, and writings are to encourage everyone that they too can take control of their health. She is a wife, mother, grandmother, and leads an active life that includes bicycling, hiking, running, tennis, yoga, and backpacking. So with no further ado, let's bring on Tracy.
Yes. Before we bring Tracy on, everybody watching, share this video.
Yes, share it.
Share it,
Tracy's
because we're bringing Tracy on, and she's going to bring it. I've already had a mini conversation with her, and she is just full of joy.
Yes.
So share.
Yes.
Here we go.
Yes.
Hi, Tracy.
Hey, guys. How are you? It's great to be here. We are so happy to have you.
Oh, my. I think happy is an understatement. Yeah. We're overjoyed to have you. Oh, all right. So let's get cracking, like they say here in North Texas, right? So, Miss Tracy, you're 17 years old. Tell us what happened.
I am 17 years old, lying in the hospital bed in ICU, fighting for my life. I was so sick. It was unbelievable how sick I was. And the doctor walks in, and literally he puts his hands on his hips and he says, "Young lady, you've got juvenile diabetes. You're going to be dead within 20 years. You're going to die with horrible complications. You're going to go blind. You're going to have to go on dialysis. You'll have your legs amputated. You're never going to be able to have any children. Oh, and by the way, you're going to have to take shots several times a day for the rest of your life because there's not a cure." This man turned around and walked out of the room. And I'm sitting there going, what? And I was in the hospital for 2 weeks, and I was having to learn to give myself shots like you do when you have juvenile diabetes, which is now called type 1 diabetes. And I'm trying to figure out, how in the world do you handle this kind of life? And I'm 17, I was in my senior year of high school, getting ready to have the best life that I was expecting. And then all of a sudden, the brakes stopped. And I'm going to these classes learning, how do you live with this kind of disease that there's no cure for? And you have to do something every single day because you never go into remission with diabetes. And it was the craziest thing. I kept saying, what can I do to get better? And everybody said, there's nothing you can do. And I'm like, what? At 17, I'm like, somebody give me hope. The doctors even told my parents, don't waste your money sending her to college. And I'm like, thank goodness my parents didn't listen to this craziness. So I'm out of the hospital 2 weeks later, trying to live a normal, teenage life of not being able to eat anything. Back then, it was so difficult because it was an exchange program. And I was literally on 1,200 calories a day at 17 years old. My first day back to high school, and the tennis coach called me to come down to his office. Now, y'all, I'm a 3-year returning letter woman, and that's the first letter woman in my history of my high school. that I was going to be able to achieve that year because I was one of the top ranked tennis players, freshman, sophomore, junior year. And he said, we're going to have to release you from the tennis team. And I'm like, why? And he's like, well, you're sick. I'm like, no, I'm not sick. My pancreas doesn't work. And he said, I'm sorry, you're done. And I thought, so I walked out of there with my head, going back to class going, my life is over. And then a couple of weeks later, my friends and I all went to the movies because we wanted to go see Animal House. That's been a while, y'all. I am old, but still one of the best movies of all time. And my mom reminded me as I was running out the door, you remember, Tracy, you can't eat anything. Now, did she say it was we didn't have the money? Of course not. Or wanted to be mean? No. But she told me that because I had to learn to develop self-control, discipline, and learn how to manage this disease. So all my friends were getting the candy, the popcorn, everything you get at the movie theaters. And it was my turn. And I asked for a cup because back then, that's all you could get is a little cup like that for a drink of water out of the water fountain because I wanted something. And the concession stand clerk looked at me like I was from outer space. And she's like, no. And I'm like, oh, I'll be glad to pay for it. And she said, no. And this was way before diet soft drinks, way before bottled water. And that was it. The weeks of utter terror, desperation. And I am so sad. I'm running out to my car screaming, why me? Why me? I wanted to die at that moment in my life. And I'm driving home sobbing. And I got home and I went to bed and I'm still sobbing and sobbing. I mean, it's just like I'm there right now. And I said, Tracy, you've got two choices. You can either be better or you can be bitter. What are you going to choose? And at that moment, at 17 years old, my life totally changed. And it changed for the best. And so every day I was getting up saying, I'm living life to the fullest. I choose to be better, not bitter. So I started sneaking into a medical school library and I started researching at 17 years old. And I still research every day what it takes to live healthy. And the doctors are like, how are you still alive? And what are you doing? I'm like, I'm researching, I'm learning everything I can. And I've been doing that for now almost 43 years. Next month, it's going to be 43 years. And every doctor all told me when I was going through my diagnosis and trying to learn to boil syringes and everything else, that you would be dead in 20 years, which would have been my mid-30s. So every decade, I do something huge to celebrate my anniversary of my diagnosis. Because again, and y'all can say it with me, I chose to be better, not bitter.
Not bitter. That's an amazing. Thank you for that line. Thank you for that.
You'll hear me say it, and we're going to all say it together a lot. So keep saying it with me.
Okay.
So every decade I do something to celebrate because I chose to be better, not bitter. And so one year I did the Hotter Than Hell 100-mile bike ride in Texas, which that's not a joke. That name really is fitting. Yeah. And then one year I did a triathlon. Even though I'm afraid of water, but I do something every year that frightens me because that's what keeps me young and going. And then, so as my 40th anniversary approached, and I thought, what are you going to do, Tracy? And I said, let's go across the country on a bicycle. Now, my kids, which I wasn't supposed to have kids, they all kind of thought I was crazy. Our grandkids are like, okay, Mimi, go for a bike ride. And that's what I did. I left at the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, and I rode my bicycle and ended at the Brooklyn Bridge in New York City, 3,527 miles.
It's amazing. Wow. Amazing.
Wow.
Incredible.
Did y'all hear that, guys? 3,527 miles. And then
can we take a deep breath on that and just like marinate in that? No, nothing. We're limitless. We really are.
And at the age of 17 is whenever Tracy made this decision to be better, not bitter. 17 years old. And she's lived it for 43 years. It's amazing.
Now, do you feel that was some kind of divine guidance or a connection with yourself to like, what do you think sent that message to you, or how did you take that as a 17-year-old? Because it shows your conviction. I mean, literally you've changed tons of life since that day, but
that's a great question. Nobody's ever asked that question before. I think with my faith is very important to me. And I think it's probably divine because I just am in tune with my faith. But I believe that I was so desperate. I mean, y'all don't understand. The last 2 or 3 weeks before my diagnosis, couldn't even get out of bed. I was so sick, and I'm 5'11", and I was at height in high school, and I was probably 100 to 102, 97 pounds by that time. And my parents had to literally pick me up out of bed. And a few months before that, I was traipsing around Europe with a group of people from school. So it wasn't like this was something that happened quickly, but I kept saying I was so desperate. I really literally wanted to die. Taking shots, learning how to take shots was horrifically scary, let me tell you. And knowing that this was going to eventually kill me, but I don't believe that because I changed my mindset. But I had to put up within. So I believe it was divine, but I also think, and to me, it's a partnership because, God could cure me today if he wanted to. And he chose to allow me to continue this path, but I also chose the self-discipline and self-control so I can take care of myself. So to me, it's a partnership, and I don't want to disrespect God, but I do believe that that's the way I believe. And so at 17, I was a little different, and I was so irritated with everybody saying, you're going to die. I was like, I'm going to show you. I mean, I've kind of been hard-headed my whole life.
I love it. That's the free will God gives us. He gives us opportunities, but we can't just sit on the couch and, we have to be responsible for the opportunities he gives us and take those and run with them. And I love that you said it's a partnership.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
That
Beautiful.
was a beautiful. Yeah.
So real quick, guys, I think Kendall Mason sums it up. Fire, 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 fire.
Yes.
You're pure fire, Tracy. And I get the feeling that you've been a fireball all your life. Like this kind of spunk doesn't just appear over 43 years, especially at 17 years old to make that type of decision. You've been a fireball and just this spirit forever. And I love that we're getting to chat with you. Yeah. So the bike ride, let's chat about the bike ride. Tell us a little bit about that. So you're there, you're deciding to ride 3,527 miles, and tell us a little bit about that journey.
So it took me a couple of weeks to even have the courage to be able to tell my husband what I felt like I should do. And I was like so scared, even though he's the best guy in the whole entire universe. But he was like, I told him, I said, let me take you to breakfast. I got something to talk to you about, So I said, I'm going for a bike ride. I think I need to ride across the country. And he's like, oh, that is so awesome. So, okay, we got to do this, this, and this. He's very process oriented. He's like, okay, we got to do this, this, and this, and this. And then a couple of days later, I was telling our youngest, and I said, I'm going to go for a bike ride. And she's like, oh, okay. So, and I'm like, I'm going to go from San Francisco to New York City. And she said, oh, I love it. Go bridge to bridge. Makes sense. And then she said, what are you going to do about your insulin? Because I was planning on just camping at first. And I thought, oh gosh, I had forgotten about my insulin, because insulin you have to keep cold. And so my husband's like, let's go buy an RV. So we went and bought an RV on a leap of faith, because I truly believe this was something that, again, back to divinity, I believe that this was inspired by God. I truly believe that this was something. And we left Fort Worth on our way to California. And we said, if we can inspire one person or give one person hope, this whole entire thing is worth it. And the power of one, it's always the power of one. And so everybody asked me, because I am not usually very bold. Let me be honest about that. And everybody's like, are you scared? I was getting text messages the day before. And I'm like, I'm at peace. I cannot believe how much peace I'm in. I was overwhelmed with thinking, I can do this. The worst that can happen is I don't make it, but I'm being obedient to what I'm supposed to be doing. And so because of that, I kept pedaling every day. But when I left the Golden Gate Bridge, I didn't say, I've got to go 3,527 miles. Every day I did just like I did when I was a kid. And I said, I'm going for a bike ride. So every day I'd get on my bike and I'd go for a bike ride. And it was so interesting, the people I met along the way. But one day, and the tenacity when you live with a disease, or if you're just trying to stay healthy, whatever that is you never stop, no matter what. And one day I was leaving from Trunky, California to Reno, Nevada. I don't know if any of y'all know this place, but it was supposed to only be 3 hours, like Gilligan's Island, the 3-hour tour. But it didn't happen because I got lost. The whole entire trip I was lost, but this was absolutely scary. I was climbing with my bike over my arm, carrying my bicycle over a mountain, 3 peaks, because I was lost. And I knew I had to get over that mountain and I couldn't figure out how to get there. And so I'm climbing with my bicycle, no cell service, no food. I'm almost out of water because I'd only planned for 3 hours. And so by the time I got to the very top, my, how you get your phone and it starts messaging that that you got cell service again. And I called my husband and I said, I'm lost. I mean, he heard this every day, but I said, I'm lost. He got on the family app and he said, Tracy, you're on the wrong side of the mountain. So I'm sobbing at this time, turning off my phone, sobbing, and back to the 2 choices. Y'all, we have 2 choices in everything in life. And I said, Tracy, you could call the park ranger right now and the ride would be over, but you'd be safe, or keep going. And so I picked up my bike and I slid down that hill because I'm climbing boulders. I wish you could see the size of the boulders I'm climbing over. And I made it to the end. I got back down on the road and I got into Reno 7.5 hours later though. But it's just whatever you're struggling with. I have story after story of those kind of situations. And it's just every day you got to do something every day and you can achieve big things. I always like to say small steps equal big changes. So every day I'd go for a bike ride, and Nevada was really difficult for me because it was record heat, but it was also very lonely because I was on the loneliest highway in America. And boy, let me tell you, it was the loneliest highway in America. And I'm just riding and riding and riding, virtually not seeing anybody. By this time I'm missing my family. I'm just feeling kind of dejected. But then I thought, keep going, keep going, keep going. And then when I got through with Nevada, things really picked up. I got into Utah and I started meeting more people again because I'm very outgoing, but it's just every day do something. And before you know it, you'll get to the Brooklyn Bridge in New York City. And that's exactly the attitude I have living with diabetes, but also riding my bicycle.
I love that so much. That is such one, I've kind of studied a lot about the brain and dopamine and norepinephrine and all of those things that happen, those chemicals that go on in your brain. Mm-hmm. And that small focus, just focus on one day at a time. Let's get through this day, because then when you get to the end of the day, you have that win, which creates that dopamine, which gives you that space to do it again tomorrow or do the next thing tomorrow. So just celebrating those one day at a time, one step at a time. I love that so much. And look what it helped you to accomplish. It's amazing.
Yeah. The day by day that you explained, but you pointing out that we need to do something that scares us every day too. So one, take the scary part day by day, break it down, but also add to that extra fire, that extra boost. So thank you. It's powerful.
Every day, do something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you have 2 choices. That's so simple. That's such a simple formula.
That's what I say. It's not rocket science. It's just, and everybody, I'm not the only person in the world struggling with anything. I can tell you that. But if you get up every day and set, a goal, what are you going to do today? Maybe it's not riding across the country, but maybe it's walking around the block. And this story is going to really impact somebody. I just feel it. So I'm going to share it if it's okay with y'all. Is it okay if I share this story?
Please. Yes.
Of course.
So I'm in Sacramento and I'm waiting for the light to turn green. And I just out of the corner of my eye, I just kind of saw somebody and I thought, okay, get off your bike and go over and talk to her. So I just walked over there and I said, hey, and she said, must be nice to ride your bike across the city. And I said, well, actually, I'm going to New York City. And she said, well, I have to wait for my brother or uncle, whoever it was, to pick her up because she couldn't walk home and her home was around the other block. And I just started talking to her and the health coach came out in me like usual. And I said, could you walk to the end of the street? No, I couldn't do that. Could you walk next door? No. And I said, could you walk to the end of your driveway? And just at that moment, you could see the light bulb going off. And she says, I think I can. I said, yes. So I said, walk to the end of your driveway and rest and walk back. Now, y'all, she was probably in her mid 30s, but she was morbidly obese, probably needing to lose several hundred pounds just to become obese. It was a very dangerous situation she was in. So she said, I hate to have my family, having to pick me up from the bus stop every day. She says, I can't even get up and down the bus very well. And so I said, just walk to your driveway, rest, and walk back. And I said, tomorrow, do the same thing. Go a little faster, rest, and walk back. I mean, it's not, again, small steps equal big changes. And by the time I was heading into New York City, I got a message from this lady, and she said, I just signed up for my first 5K walk. Isn't that amazing? Just every day doing little things. And she said, I didn't even realize the weight would come off. And she said, that wasn't what my goal was. My goal was just to walk home. But she was signing up for her first 5K walk. And it's just amazing how little things every day can change your life.
Yes.
Wow.
Compound
Thank you for
effect.
sharing it.
Beautiful.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, Miss Tracy, take us to mile 3,400. You're 127 miles till you're done. What are you feeling? What are you thinking? What great story do you have around that time?
Well, every time it was very difficult. And I did all my training in Texas, knowing I was going to have to climb 3 mountain ranges. I was going to have to climb over the Sierras. I was going to have to climb over the Rockies. And I was going to have to climb over the Appalachians. I mean, ride, I say climb, but climbing up these hills. And every time I would get so worn out, I would go up. A Donner Pass in California was one of the worst things I've ever done. I mean, it was just days and days of climbing, but I would always visualize New York City. So every time I was getting down the dumps, I would say, okay, visualize New York City and keep going, because you got to have, visualization is important for everything. And so I kept thinking, as I was getting close, 100, 150 miles out of New York City, I kept thinking, okay, how are you going to feel? Because when I was riding my bike in Wyoming, in, Utah, and over these huge mountains in California, I would see New York City and I would just bawl like a baby. But then as I got closer, I kept thinking, cool, come on, get that feeling up. And I didn't get that feeling up. And so I was just like, be careful, because there was a lot more traffic the closer you got to New York City. So 150 miles by that time, I was just like, stay focused. I had just fallen in Pennsylvania. I got chased by a dog, and I just fallen, and I was really banged up, and I was really hurting. And so I think it was just that, is just slow and steady wins the race. Slow and steady wins the race. Plus, I was very fortunate. I got a phone call from one of Dr. Oz's producers in Chicago, and they had they really wanted me to finish my ride on the show. And so they set some dates, and they said, could you make any of these dates? And I'm like, yeah, I could slow down. So I was actually able to slow down a little bit. And it was nice. But then when I fell, man, I tell you one thing, that fall right after lunch, I had to get back on that bicycle. And that was tough, because my skinned up knees, my skinned up arms, I felt like a grandmother that part of the trip too. But getting into New York City, you think you would just be overwhelmed. But I was in my mind thinking, okay, what can I do next? Could I ride to Washington, D.C.? Could I start sharing some information to, the politicians there, like I have in Austin at our state capitol? And I was like, maybe I'll ride back to Texas. And my husband's like, no, you're done. You're done. You're done. So he's like, plan the next trip. But it really wasn't the emotional high I thought it would be. But waiting on Dr. Oz's loading dock to get on the stage, that's when it really hit me that look what you've done. And that was really actually more traumatic for me than crossing the Brooklyn Bridge, even though all their photographers and filming camera crews and everything were there. But I just was overwhelmed at look what I did. I mean, don't let fear frighten you. Eleanor Roosevelt said, she said, do something every day that frightens you. And I was so afraid to ride my bicycle in New York City because of all the traffic. But I was so fortunate because I was able to ride my bicycle in San Francisco and get a little bit more confidence. I was able to ride my bicycle through downtown Chicago and the south side of Chicago, which is the #1 murder capital in the United States of America. And I rode through there all by myself, which everything I did was by myself, but that was pretty scary. But, I was able each day to get stronger and more reliant on myself and feeling confident that it really wasn't the high that I was expecting it to be, because I had so many highs along the way, especially meeting so many people.
Wow. All right, let's take a second here. You talked about Dr. Oz. You talked about being on the loading dock. Let's see if we could get this to work
There
properly.
She is. She's coming around the corner up the road. There she is. She's actually here. Can she do it? Can she finish? Oh my goodness, she's going to ride all the way in. That's her loading dock.
There's the loading dock you were talking about.
I got goosebumps.
Oh my goodness. Take it away. Keep going. Take it to her.
Woo!
Great.
That is so awesome.
500 miles. Oh my goodness.
Woo!
Are you okay?
Wow.
Okay, let me
Wow.
just highlight the fact that this woman is a grandmother. Okay. She's a grandmother and she did that. It's amazing.
That gave me chills.
Yeah.
That gave me chills. When just watching you after hearing your story, that just gave me so many chills. And I pulled up the clip. I was like, we got to play at least 1 minute, especially when you started talking about the loaded. We got to play at least 1 minute.
And what was so
wife, Jessie says, "How awesome! Yes, how awesome is that?"
Yeah.
What was so scary though was that, they said, you got to follow that white line and, don't fall. And I'm like, you don't ever say don't fall when you're on a bicycle, because it's like, you don't want to jinx it, but anyway, But that was an amazing experience because they were so supportive. Every TV station I was on, which I've been on TV before when I wrote my first book, because again, people are like, how are you alive and what are you doing? And how do you have such a positive outlook? And you guys, every day it's not waking up and I'm like, oh, this is the best day of my life, because it's with diabetes, just like any other disease, it's so difficult. I mean, there were times on the side of the road along my bicycle ride, just like in life, I'm on the side of the road crying because my blood sugar is so low, which you die, or it's so high, which I didn't have any highs, but you die, you're low, you die, you're high, you choose. And I would sit there and I'd say, keep drinking water, keep trying to keep, I was carrying jelly beans with me, everything I could, quick sugar. But there were times that I would only ride like 30 miles a day because my blood sugars were so bad. That's what was even more challenging than the mountains, is how do you regulate your blood sugar when you're taking insulin and you're doing all these things? Because we had record heat on the West Coast. We had record winds in the center part of the United States, but it wasn't a tailwind, it was a headwind. Oh, and that was tough. And then in the East Coast, it was record rains. So it seemed like, and most people would think, oh, I shouldn't have done it. But I was like, it was perfect because it would made it even harder. And so why do something that's simple, just like in life? But, just like when I was pregnant with my first child, the doctors were recommending, maybe terminating the pregnancy because people with type 1 diabetes don't have children. And I was like, well, I'm not going to do that. And so, I was in the emergency room probably in my life since I've had diabetes, probably over 50 or 60 times because my blood sugar would drop so low. My daughter at 8 years old, she had to, luckily back then kids could sit in the front seat. She had to pull over the car over and put her hand on my leg to break it, or we'd have crashed right into a barrier because my blood sugars had dropped so low. Now it's better now because I've really taken control of my diabetes and I've learned I don't eat the American way. I'm sorry if I offend somebody, but I don't. I eat a lot of salads. I don't eat fast food because that spikes your blood sugar and then you crash. And if you're trying to lose weight, y'all, even if you don't have diabetes, don't eat that kind of food, because when your blood sugar spikes and then your blood sugar crashes, at the crash is when you get hungry. And that's when your self-control diminishes. And so I try to keep my blood sugars, pretty flatlined, and they're amazed at, I'm very fortunate because I've learned so much over the almost 3 years now, but it's so important every day to take control of your health. And, even it's just maybe switching from a donut to an apple, you're going to feel so much better over time. It's just like riding a bike across the country. And that's what my mission is all about, is to provide hope for people. But I also have one more mission that we didn't even get to talk about. Do I have another second or two I can talk?
Yes.
Whatever you want, Miss Tracy.
So I'm riding in my bicycle in Nevada, and I got a message through some of my people that have type 1 like I do, that we had lost a little 9-year-old girl named Sophia. And Sophia became a little girl on my back that I felt like she was with me the whole time. She died because her blood sugar dropped dangerously low. And she spent the night at her girlfriend's house for the very first time. Her very best friend, one time. All little girls at 9 want to spend the night with their best friends. And her parents let her go, and she never woke up because her blood sugar dropped so low. And I'm crying as I'm writing, thinking, if not me, then who? Something's got to be done. And so we started a foundation to put life-saving technology into children's hands. And so the first little child that we gave, it's a continuous glucose monitor, which tells what your blood sugar is all the time. But the most important thing about a CGM is it alerts people, like it alerts your parents and on your phone. So like my husband, my kids, they have the following in case something does happen to me. And if they'd have had that technology that I'm so fortunate to have, I think she'd still be alive today. So I kept going for Sophia. I kept thinking, what can I do? So I met a little boy named Hayden, and I have permission to share this from his mom. And they drove an hour and 45 minutes one way because he'd never met somebody with diabetes like he has. He was 8 years old. And at dinner that night, his mom was telling us every 2 hours, every night for 2 years, they were waking this little boy up to test his blood sugar. Because again, that's when children die in the United States more than any other time, is in the middle of the night. And so I kept thinking about Hayden. And so Hayden became our first recipient of a continuous glucose monitor. And it was such a blessing to be able to do this. And then another little girl, we met her parents, just happenstance, which is so amazing. And her mom texted me that day. She got the machine the day before and put it on her child at 6 a.m. in the morning, just for some weird reason. She said, I just felt overwhelmed to do that. At noon, her mom got the cell phone alerts that her little girl was so low, dangerously low. And she was at school and nobody knew about it because the little girl was in a closet. When your blood sugar drops so low, you don't know what you're doing. You act like you're drunk. Her mom was there and they called the paramedics and saved that little girl's life 6 hours after wearing this. So that's what, part of the ride, I was hearing about children like that, meeting children, speaking at children's camps. And it's just, again, it's a power of one. We can all do something in our little sphere and whatever that is. And so Dr. Oz was able to help us get that started. So that was exciting.
That's incredible.
Oh,
Thank you for that.
I mean, we're all gifted to do these kind of things. I mean, that's what's so amazing. We all think about, I can't do anything. And of course we can't do everything, but we can all do something to help somebody. And that's what, I could go on and on, but I'm not going to, obviously, but just don't lose hope. That's my number one concern for everybody, is because especially during all the craziness that we've got going on with COVID and everything else, without hope, we have nothing. And I am such a hope advocate because I never received hope at 17 years old. And so I elude hope. I tell people, whatever you're struggling with, you just lost a job, don't lose hope. We'll do something together to get stronger.
Yes.
I can go on forever.
I think we're speechless.
We could listen to you forever.
I'm like a hope advocate. That's beautiful.
We could all be hope advocates.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So this was, you're fixing to come up on the 3-year anniversary, September what? Should I just had it? September 13th.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, September 13th.
Mm-hmm.
What's next, Miss Tracy?
Well, I'm not quite sure when. There's just some, with COVID and with some things going on, I'm not quite sure, but I'm going to ride my bicycle from Canada to Mexico. It's only 1,800 miles, but that's my next thing.
You hear the power of words, you guys. She says it's only 1,800 miles.
Yeah.
And that's real for you. That's amazing. That is
cool. Amazing. Wow. Oh, I can't wait to have you back on after you do that.
Yeah.
I might want to follow you. I think I want to follow you on that. Yeah, that'll be fun.
Definitely.
Tell us.
So much fun.
I do social media and all that stuff. And, because when you're a hope advocate, you take it seriously. And I do take my role very seriously, because I think you hear me say it all the time. We can be better, we can be bitter, but together we're stronger. And when there's more people like the three of y'all that are out there sharing important messages for people, that, we're going to get better. We can get through anything when we're together, but we're stay positive no matter what the outcome is.
Yes.
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 Okay, tell us about, so we've got Tracy's website up on the screen, tracyherbert.com. Tell us about your podcast and your books, all of those things and resources that you have to help
Yes,
people.
please.
Well, my first book was written on the advice of my endocrinologist, who is a doctor who treats people with diabetes. And he kept saying, you've got to get this down. You've got to write this down, because I would bring him research and he'd say, never heard that before. You know, back in the old days, you'd go to the library and you'd print it out, or you'd copy it on the copy machine and everything. And he says, you need to write a book. Well, then the back of my mind, instead of saying I can, I kept saying, oh, I can't, because I was a kid in school with dyslexia that, you know, when you had dyslexia growing up in the 60s and early 70s, they just think you're dumb and stupid. And so I'm like, I can't write a book. I'm stupid. But then I start thinking, well, okay. And everybody was encouraging me, do it. If not for you, then help somebody else, but also your grandkids, you know? And so then I wrote that book, and believe it or not, well, I shouldn't say that, but believe it or not, in my mind, it became an international bestseller. And I'm like, why? But because there's so many people, and, you know, diabetes epidemic around the world. And the strategies I do is what I practice every day. And it just continues to grow. I mean, I could keep writing novels about what I learn every day, which is why I do the podcast. But what is so interesting is because it's so simple. So when I spoke at Harvard, and the doctors were grabbing up my book because they were saying, this is exactly what we need. This is what we tell our patients, but you're speaking it as a layman. And I'm like, because I do it every day. I mean, it's not rocket science to me. I can tell you by looking at something how much insulin I need. Well, almost 3 years later, I've kind of got it down, but there's still days I wake up and I think, what is going on? Why is my blood sugar so bad? So that's the first book, Diabetes Tragedy to Triumph. And it's based on almost 40 years at that time of research. And then my next book was Ride for Hope, which is based on my bicycle ride. And I wrote that book twice, 2 different times. I didn't like the first. I wrote the whole thing and I thought, this isn't it. This just isn't it. And so I thought, stop again. So I deleted it. I didn't even save it because I'm like, nope, I'm not going for second best. So I deleted it. And then I got the idea of, let's do it daily so people can read it and then they can really feel part of the ride. And that was it. And that became a Amazon new release bestseller, which was shocking. And then my third book I just wrote, I was very fortunate. I tag teamed, I co-authored it with my husband, Longevity Codes, because that's based on growing older. Because, you know, now that I'm 60, you've got to make sure that, you know, people over the age of 50 say, well, you can't do something. Well, I'm going to ride my bicycle from Canada to Mexico sometime in my 60s. You know, I'm going to do hikes and all those kind of things I still do. So it's just a number. So that was based on, again, science. Everything I do is based on science. Ride for Hope is based on emotion and the people I met and the pictures. And it was an amazing experience. And if anybody has anything that they have a bucket list, do it. Don't wait for tomorrow, because you just never know what tomorrow's going to hold. And every day I wake up and I'm thankful for another day of life, because again, experts say I should be dead. And so I plan ahead because I drive on goals. That's the kind of person. I'm a very goal-driven person. And so I do something to make sure. So that's why I did a spin class this morning to get ready for my next bike ride.
Wow.
Yeah. Have y'all ever heard that scale where, like, I don't know who quoted it, but a lot of people die at 30 or 40, even though they live to be 80 or 90, you know, but you are the shining example of like the extreme to one side of like, no, I'm going to live every single day to like, I feel like full of life is a very extreme understatement, but just the joy that you bring, and it shows that you walk the walk. And I can't wait to read the books. I'm so excited to see what more you can do, because yeah, you're just a great example that we are limitless.
Yes.
We are resourceful and we are limitless.
Kristen says, God has filled you. Sorry. Kristen says, God has filled you up so much, Tracy, that you are spilling out everywhere you go. God bless you, precious lady.
Thanks, Kristen. That was sweet.
That really sums it up. Our buddy Rob, one step at a time in all aspects of life.
Yes.
Oh, Miss Tracy,
So what is your podcast called? So people can find it.
Your Diabetes Breakthrough. And it's on all platforms, just like everything else is. And there's some fun, there's some singing, which I can't sing, but as you attested to that, because every once in a while you have to sing, right? Like in the mountains, what goes up must come down. I mean, I was singing a lot, y'all. And one more thing. Do I have time for one more quick story?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
I got into a fight with a cow. I had to play chicken with a cow. It was hilarious. Free range. They're literally crossing the street, and that cow just stopped and looked at me and wouldn't let me pass. And so I kept thinking, what do I do? And I actually saw on another ride, which you'll see all this in the documentary, there's a chicken cross the road. And I know now why the chicken crossed the road. I watched the chicken cross the road. I'm like, to get to the other side. They're right.
Oh, you mentioned the documentary. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I didn't really know what it was just one of those things. You go on a bike ride and you don't know what's going to happen. But I had a GoPro. We did a lot of videos along the way. And we really had thought the whole time about doing a documentary because, again, people that didn't see the ride, people that didn't see the TV shows, they could get some hope maybe from this. And so we've been really struggling with trying to figure out how to get this going. But we're so blessed because we just met somebody with a couple of people that their team, they want to take on this project. And so we're really getting through all the hundreds of hours of video. And it's just, there's a lot of stuff on there. Because I took pictures, I stopped, I did a lot of video just because you just never know. And I'm so shocked at how I left, again, Fort Worth, and I felt like the world was coming to an end. I just felt like everybody hated everybody. It was just miserable. And then by about 30 days on the ride, I started seeing wonderful people everywhere. One day I stopped on the side of the road and a lady got out of her car and she said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Sure." I said, "Yeah, I'm just resting." She gave me a cold bottle of water. She said, "You need this more than I do." And I thought, that's so amazing. I had a horrible flat tire, a blowout. I had a lot of those along the way. And then this man and wife stopped. Not only did he fix my tire, they had their bikes in their back. He had a whole bunch of equipment because he's a professional skier and he's also a professional bike rider. And so he gave me not only to fix my tire, but he gave me several inner tubes that I wouldn't have been able to continue on without having to stop and go somewhere because I had so many flats. I mean, people like that along the way. That a lady in Nebraska, I was sitting there, I was so dejected, I was hot, I was tired, I was thirsty, and she brought me lunch. She said, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm just taking a break. I'm waiting for my husband to catch up with the RV because he's working full time and meeting up with me at different times. I mean, it's crazy our life that summer." And she said, "What do you like to eat?" And I said, "Oh, I like salads. I like all sorts of things." And then here she brought me lunch. And just to bless me, she said, "I just want to bless you." I mean, there are so many good people around the country. And I kept thinking, Tracy, get out of that mindset. We're all good people. It's so anyway, I recommend that you get out in nature, go hiking, go meet your neighbors. And there's so many good people in this world that we sometimes don't get to hear about.
Good advice.
Guys, if you want some life coaching from Miss Tracy, you want to get her books, subscribe to her podcast, follow her journey, free resources online because it's an important topic that she's very passionate about.
Mm-hmm. And not just about diabetes either. It's all health in general. So
yes, and mindset.
Tracy's got all kinds of health mindset. Yeah.
Yes. And if the slim chance this isn't resonating with you personally, but who else in your life could you also share her website with free resources that maybe it's diabetes, maybe it's another health issue, but
make sure you visit
below. Utilize that a lot.
Miss Tracy Herbert, tracyherbert.com.
And there's three things that why I'm still alive today. Do you want that secret? I was going to save it. Do you want the secret or not?
Yes.
My 3M formula. You ready?
Yes.
It's simple. Mind, you got to have the right mindset. Mouth, learn to eat to live, don't live to eat, and move, get off your chairs and move more. You do those 3 things just like I've been doing for almost 43 years. You're going to have more energy, more smile. You're going to feel on fire. You're going to be able to accomplish anything you set your mind to.
Wow.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's so fabulous.
Just thank you for today, Tracy. I can't, yeah, I'm still absorbing all the others, but just thank you.
Yes, Miss Tracy. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, make sure you go visit Miss Tracy's website for her podcast, her books, contact her for speaking engagements, all that kind of good stuff. That's Miss Tracy Herbert, and you can visit her website at tracyherbert.com.
Yep.
And that's HERBERT, and we'll be linking to it in the show notes below. Thank you, Miss Tracy, for joining us. Guys, go visit forceforgirls.com. We're going to be linking to her podcast. We're going to add a section, our favorite podcast, and we'll be linking to Miss Tracy's podcast, our first. I just decided we're going to add a section for our favorite podcast. And we're going to link to her podcast. And make sure you go and watch this interview. For my people listening on the iTunes and Spotify and the audio versions, go watch the YouTube version of this interview.
Yeah.
Miss Tracy's smile is infectious. Her joy is contagious.
Yes.
Make sure you go watch that. If it sounds good to you on the audio version, go watch it on YouTube.
Yeah.
Go
energy.
Go see this energy. It is fabulous. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Miss Tracy, I look forward to having you back again soon and to hear more about your next journey and your documentary. I foresee, I wish I need a Swami hat like Johnny Carson. I foresee us being at your premiere for your documentary.
Yes.
I foresee that. I see that. We're going to be there. I'll be there for sure. Yeah. No doubt. Again, guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll be back on Monday for what? The word of the week.
Word of the week.
Thank you, Tracy.
Guys.
Bye, guys.